Hey guys, John Latok here from Stormforce Performance. I want to explain to you today why you might be getting a lot of back pain or even back injuries when you're doing conditioning, particularly if you do conditioning with weights. Okay, I got asked a few months back, why don't we ever do heavy lifting at the same time as conditioning and mixing it into circuits? I know this person has seen it on the internet, seen it on these big fitness competitions. It certainly looks impressive. But first of all, even the top guys get injured. But second of all, most people do not have the ability to breathe at an intense rate, which is exactly what conditioning should be doing, and maintain stability for heavy lifting at the same time. Particularly complex heavy lifting, such as Olympic lifting, deadlifts, back squats, front squats, and so on. So what is happening is that this is essentially a very basic graphic of your core muscles, and we start from the top. Your diaphragm is part of your core in terms of stabilizing your spine, stabilizing this trunk area. So park that for now. This is your diaphragm up here. We have your external obliques, and underneath them your internal obliques. They're pretty much the ones down the side. We have this, what we call the transverse abdominis, or we call it the TVA. It's effectively like a natural weightlifting belt. You see people putting their belts on. We've actually got one of those in our bodies, and it wraps somewhere around here. We have the pelvic floor down at the bottom, and then of course on the front and the back we have your abdominals, and we have your erector spinae, the lower back muscles. Now, all of those need to work together to form compression around your spine and keep it safe. This is where the problems come in. When we're breathing at 40, 50 breaths a minute, the diaphragm is going up and down. It's not going to be able to provide the core stability that you need to do a heavy lift. So the more tired I get, the faster I'm going to breathe. The faster I breathe, the more this diaphragm is moving up and down, and I am not able to generate that core stability, particularly if all of these other muscles aren't particularly strong. You're taking away this compression, you're taking away this stability. You are not going to be able to keep your back in a good place. And that is when deadlift starts around, Olympic lifts are becoming very uncontrolled. It is really, really a bad idea, particularly for anybody below like the top sort of 3 to 5% who have become so efficient and so controlled with their movements that they are able to do it at a high intensity. Now, what I should say is you can use heavy stuff, provided that exercise is not complex and doesn't involve a lot of hinging and needing to stabilize the back. So you could use things like maybe a sandbag carry. You still need your core muscles, but I can hold that bag and I can walk along. There's less demand in terms of positioning and complexity. The same would apply to the prowler or the sled, whatever you choose to call it. You can load that thing up and you can push it and you can be working really hard, but I don't really need much in the way of technical demand. I can put my hands on there, I can tighten up a little bit, and I can push hard with my legs. So there's a few things wrapped in this video. The first thing is, for most people, I really don't recommend you try and combine heavy lifting or complex lifting with high intensity cardio. However, I do like circuits. I love conditioning. It's pretty much what my business has been based around, but it needs to be made safe. So again, that's going to be a relative concept depending on the individual. Some people will be able to get away with it, some people haven't got a hope, and even using their body weight becomes a struggle. They can't maintain positioning even with their body weight. So again, heavy is relative, complex is relative. You need to understand what you are capable of, but a great way to think of it is to think about really learning patterning of the exercises first, then being able to use a weight in that pattern. That is basically what strength training is, and kind of moving up that spectrum. Build your conditioning up. Like just doing air bike intervals on their own is a savage thing to do, and it will really improve your fitness, but it comes with very little safety risk. Unless you fall off the bike because you're so tired, you're probably not going to get hurt, again because there isn't much in the way of technical demand. Then as life goes on, you may be able to start combining the two, starting with body weight conditioning combined with the cardio. Then we might look at kettlebells combined with the cardio. Okay, but I generally don't see a need for anybody, particularly if you're not going into competitions with that specific demand. I don't really see the point. I don't see that the risk-reward ratio is worth it. So Get good at breathing, learn to diaphragmatic breathe, learn to breathe without losing core tension, and then you will be able to progress into these things. But otherwise, if you never grasp this concept, you never grasp your breathing, there's going to be this glass ceiling in terms of what you're able to do safely, which will always be rule number one to keep you in the game.